Hello and welcome back to the Awakening Philosophy podcast. My name is Jed. Hello. Today we are in the Philosophical Midwifery book still. Soon we'll be jumping into either the Symposium or Jesus versus Socrates, Jesus and Socrates, a dialogue in heaven, which are two fantastic dialogues. I have to make a new scene and stuff for it, so it takes a little while, but we'll be getting into that soon. But now we are in chapter 5, where we are looking at two specific case studies of people going through this art that we have been learning, the art of how to understand and remove human problems. So last time we saw some interesting things from that first review. Thumbs up. Subject A. We saw that her problems were caused by a teaching that becomes a false belief that she is loyal to because it's about herself. She's identified herself with a belief that is tied to a false teaching that is tied to the family, preventing her from functioning towards her highest goals. Now this is part of reading. When we read, we are getting a definition of a problem. It's being demonstrated in this case study, but we have to do the next couple of parts, division and conclusion. So as we read it, we have to break down our reading into key parts and then organize them together according to a model so we can synthesize it. And that will help us get a better understanding of that thing we are defining. So what are we learning? We're learning that reading also is the dialectic. Whoops. So let's write that on the board so we can see it clearly. We are reading. So part of our journey on this channel together is, in the love of understanding, is learning what exactly reading is. Famously, the author of this book said on many interviews, all I am doing is teaching people how to read. Well, we are given a definition, the subject in relation to itself, of this activity called philosophical midwifery. We've been learning a definition of philosophical midwifery and the Pathologos. In fact, this is what we have been up until now getting our definition of. We've been defining the Pathologos really, so let's keep that as our definition. What is a Pathologos? Is it a many? Is it a one? Does it have parts? Do they fit together? Okay, and then we're in subject A, we've been given a demonstration. Let's say midwifery too, just in case. Demonstration. I was going to sneeze, but I didn't sneeze. Demonstration. This is subject A. Which is what we've been defining, the Pathologos and specific Pathologos and the art of midwifery. applied or functioning. How is it functioning in her life, her pathologos, and how is midwifery functioning? So we have to do the next few things. Because part of reading, we are learning, is looking for a pattern and then looking for what's missing from the pattern that we can fill in to solve the puzzle. And of course, the greatest pattern, the archetype of all patterns, is the dialect, the structure of the logos. Division. That functioning, how does it relate to us? This functioning to others, how does it affect us? Or can we break this functioning down into other aspects or parts? Can we divide it up into key ideas and themes? This is what we have to do. And from those key ideas and themes, can we find a way of synthesizing, then synthesis, which gives us that first O, and then analysis, anal, this, which is taking it back to that first definition or the conclusion. Other back to self. So we have to do. Okay? This is part of reading. So, what are, from what we read last time, what were the key ideas and themes that emerged? Well, there was a family teaching. Thou shalt not understand. Thou shalt not understand. And from that teaching, there came a belief. A belief about bluffing, and just getting by. Is it just getting by? Let me make sure the words reflect what's actually in the book. Thou shalt not understand. Bluffing. It's a states of mind involved, of course. Go on and skip it. Just get through it. Just get through it. Right. Bluffing. I'm not going to be able to understand it. And not able to understand. not able to understand. What else? Oh, it's a certain kind of belief that functions in an insidious way to prevent her from understanding, specifically because she's identified with it. I. I can't understand. I have to get... Yes. So, I, or self-identity. And this keeps her within the clan. Gets her affection and attention. Gets her attention, affection, acceptance. Some sameness. She's going to be likeness. She's going to be like Mummy and Daddy. Mummy also couldn't understand. Daddy also couldn't understand or teach. Likeness to parents. And this prevented her from reaching her goal that she wanted to do. Prevents her from her self-goal, her own goal for herself, to be a computer programmer. Computer programmer. Oh, handwriting. Zoom in a little bit. Computer programmer. Okay. In fact, she misdiagnosed her thoughts about her becoming a computer programmer as a distracting fantasy, when it wasn't. It was just the implications of what followed. So we can maybe add a different color here. She had ideas of the implications of what follows if she is free of this block. And what's fascinating is following the implications of what follow is thinking, is the dialectic, is an aspect of the dialectic, which is what we're doing here in reading. We're not just reading it and then moving on, because we're taught at school reading it is just getting through it. We're reading to understand, because we see through our understanding. We can function through our understanding, which allows us to reach more significant goals and be better people and happier. So reading involves not just getting through it like we read here, but understanding it, the very thing she was blocked from. And as we saw last time, what we're discovering is the movement from belief to understanding is the stage of development we're at as human beings. Our human problems are caused by a kind of identification to beliefs that prevent understanding. You ever tried talking to a racist? They can't change their mind. They can't, even though what you're asking them to engage in is reason and evidence to gain true understanding. They are identified with their beliefs. Therefore, they can't change it. In fact, they can't even respond to understanding or reason and evidence. And they get defensive and aggressive. And then put on a red hat and march in the street with a mask on, exclaiming how much they hate people who look different than them and how much they like people like Donald Trump. So hopefully you have seen a lot of yourself in Subject A's case study. So what? So these are some key ideas and themes that have emerged from our reading. You've got to look for those things. That's the division stage. So part of learning is building our definition from the text. Color yellow. And we've got a demonstration, self to others. That's important. If you're talking about something, you don't want to just describe a bike. You want to explain how it functions. You're teaching someone what a bike is. But that's not the end. We have to do the next stage, which is synthesis. Can we find a way of synthesizing these key ideas that have emerged? Well, one way of doing it we are discovering over and over again is through the dialectic structure. Can we see the dialectic structure in this pattern? Let's have a look. Well, a family teaching. That sounds like a logos. Now, it's a pathologos, of course. Teaching, and a way of thinking. A belief. So that teaching leads to a kind of unity or a belief. Now, again, it's a belief version of unity, so it's a distortion of true unity. And that is significant in that it blocks us and causes human problems. Because it's not just any old belief that we can change with new evidence and reason or learning. No. We're stuck to it because we think it's the self. And once again, it's not the real self. It's false image. And all of these together allow for a kind of group unity, loving, supporting group unity. It's a lovely thing. We're human beings after all. This is part of it. It's nice to have friends. Join the Discord. if you wish. But of course, it's destructive, and it's based on ignorance. We are united in that we all do not understand. And this, so long as she stays loyal to this, she can fantasize, or she can fantasize about her goals, her reach, self goals. Now I'm putting it this way because we've noticed a theme coming up here, in that blocked. These are all distortions. Isn't that interesting? There is a distorted logos, or a distorted teaching, that is comes together in a distorted unity, a belief that isn't about the true self, but a false image of the self that can function with others in a destructive and ignorant way, that can block us from our goals. So, what have we done here? We have looked at these key themes, and we've added what we recognize as self-ers, self-logos language of philosophy, or the real. That's not enough. We still are looking for something that we can find these self-logos words in that reflect a true pattern from philosophy. What have we got? Oh, that looks like the hypotheses of Parmenides we've been talking about. The greatest book never read, because it outlines the full dialectic. And Parmenides applies it to all of the possible ways of being, ways of thinking, ways of understanding that humans go through. So it's our map for individual spiritual growth. It's the map for learning. It's the map for our evolution for societies and cultures and history. So it's our map for evolution. But it's also maps our way to our highest purpose or destiny, our highest goal, what we are destined to reach, what we are here for, or the meaning of the life. So the logos is the third hypothesis. Let's use green. The third hypothesis is the logos and providence. That's what we participate in midwifery, in philosophy, in dream analysis. The third hypothesis. The ultimate unity, so the true versions of these would be the third hypothesis, but we have the distorted version. So we have the distorted or the, what we say, if X does not exist. So in the dialectic, you do these 4 categories to what does exist, like being and justice. But you also have to create a model of what happens if it doesn't exist. Pathologos, the third hypothesis. Distorted. Unity. Oh, what's ultimate unity? Again, so we can understand the pathologos is a distorted reflection of what we're really seeking in the third hypothesis. Unifying all of our teachings, our words, our understanding in a complete unity or oneness is the experience of the brilliant light of being, or pure ousia, or the second hypothesis. And that experience, along with understanding or wisdom, allows us to gain insight into what is beyond experience and beyond words, but we can apply these two things together to gain an insight or understanding of the first hypothesis, our ultimate reason for being here, the know thyself maxim of ancient Greek or Hellenic culture, our golden age. Isn't that neat? So we see the playing out of the development of the three most significant hypotheses, the ones of the Logos, Ousia, and Self, the three big ones, the three big puppies, puppy malappies that we're after. Actually, our problems are a kind of distorted version of the true spiritual quest. So what we are discovering is it's a kind of spiritual initiation scene. It's a learning scene. It dictates whether or not she evolves, and it dictates whether or not she reaches her goals. So those four things we've been talking about that we are here to do, we've been talking about how the movement from belief to understanding. We've been talking recently about how that is the model of the paradigm or model of learning, or you might say education. This is what we should be doing at school. It's the model of spirituality. Or spiritual development. It's our evolution. We are still barbarians. We are still on the animal side of things. There was a kind of survival benefit to early human beings who had a blind loyalty to a tribe leader or cave leader, and were afraid of everything different because outside of the cave were saber-toothed tigers and all sorts of craziness that we weren't able to address without intelligence. So there was a kind of evolutionary benefit to survival, just like we've seen in subject A. Hey, surviving with mummy and daddy who also have rejected understanding might have allowed for her survival. But as an adult, the 25-year-old, she realizes, well, hang on a second, this is not good enough. I'm not able to reach my goals. I'm blocked. I'm suffering. So I'm going to do midwifery. And we say hooray for her. It's evolution, and it also reaches our highest purpose. It's what we need to reach our purpose. So we can say, not just our purpose, we say it's the purpose of all beings who are going through an evolutionary process. So we can say it's the meaning of life. Meaning of life that we are engaged in through time and space. Interesting? And what blocks us, what keeps us on this side of the game, we are seeing in subject A. Hey. So why aren't we just doing that? Why are we stuck? Why are we still fighting Nazis? Why do we still have capitalism? Why do we still have all of the scandals happening in every position of authority in human culture? Why are we stuck here? Why are we blocked from this? That's what we're seeing. Why is it difficult? Why has it taken her 2 years and she's still stuck? Why is this a process? Why are we just learning it? Why isn't it at every school, every spiritual building, in every activity that we do? Why isn't it talked about in every movie and comic book? Why doesn't every Twitch channel talk about this? Why isn't every YouTube philosophy or any content on YouTube, why is it about Mr. Beast and debating idiots who don't want to change their mind? Why isn't it all about this? Because if this is a principle, it's not a manyness or a personal belief or a personal opinion. No, that's down here. You can't dismiss this as, oh, that's just your belief. No. It's literally the movement from belief to understanding, making it a principle, universally true for everyone. Everyone can play. Even if you're a woman. Even if you have brown skin. Even if you were born in a different piece of dirt. Oh. Or even if you weren't born into royalty or wealth. The worst kinds of people out there, right? So, it sounds fucking stupid when you say it out loud. But those are the things that are implied if you think this is just a belief. You have your belief, I have my white man belief. I have my German belief. I have my Jewish belief. I have my Scientology belief. And etc., etc. And who's to say what's right and wrong? Exactly. Beliefs are about who. It's about beliefs come from other people. It's what the word means, to believe someone else. Understanding is about what. So if you're ever learning how to fix a car, let's say, you never say, who's to say the gasket goes above the carburetor? I really need to get some more mechanic terms. I'm really overusing gasket and carburetor. You never say that. You say, what is the reason? What? Not who. Because General Ford said so. What? Get out of here. You're crazy. Don't be crazy. You are. Exactly. Well, maybe things will change soon, and we'll all be talking about this, and we'll have lots and lots of fun. All right. So, what's interesting is, on this side of the game, on the negative side, the barbaric or the zombie side, we are all zombie cavemen. Why? Because zombies have a predefined script like an NPC. A very limited amount of intelligence, but they still say brains. A limited amount of self-reflection. They still hold themselves together, but they are falling apart. And it's a virus because we don't have it has us. And it's also a parasitic virus because it saps our psychic energy. So it meets all of the conditions for a zombie. Isn't that interesting? Now, some other people have made similar observations, like, oh my god, 28 days later or 28 years later is just coming out recently. And a lot of people are saying, you know who are the real zombies? Us, with our cell phones. Is the self an illusion? Right. That's what we're going. That's where we're seeing. It seems to be from our exploration of somebody going through philosophical midwifery, which is the process of removing human problems, but it's also the spiritual process, the learning process, the evolution process, and our meaning for being here, the meaning of life. We're seeing that she has developed a false teaching from learning how to do math, a false teaching, thou shalt not understand, like mummy and puppy, that she is unified into a certain belief that is significant and unable to be changed because she has identified with it, a false image of the self. So our self is an illusion for people still on this side of development, people who haven't gone through midwifery, people who are still zombie cavemen. Now, zombie for the reasons we've said, but we want to move to actually knowing the self which isn't an illusion, the self which is beyond even knowing, but we can know it in a certain kind of way through wisdom, which is the inverse of those things. So it's not a false teaching. We read Socrates, someone who's gone through this process, a master of the Logos, to gain the true Logos. And we unify our understanding about reality, not in a belief, a false unity, a false belief, but in oneness, or a direct experience of the realm of being, or ousia, which means the capacity of your own mind to turn around from your physical senses that perceive this stuff to know itself. And you recognize yourself, oh my goodness, this is me, I'm immortal, I am everything, I am eternity, I am all of the words that we learn in philosophy, the whole, but all of the parts. Unlimited, but self-contained, limit and unlimited. Beauty itself, not a beautiful adjective like we see in the physical world, a beautiful dog or a beautiful woman or a beautiful streamer or a beautiful stuffy, but the noun, the thing itself. So we call them selfers. So all of the aspects of the second hypothesis, pure being, the metaphysical realm before physical, or we call it the realm of pure being. The physical world is always in change, so we call it becoming. That's where we get our illusions. Don't know what that word is, but yeah, nous. Nous is the word for the what is experienced, or intelligence itself. Yeah. But it's knowable. So the point is, with belief, it's just a belief. But with understanding, you confirm your understanding and experience. We don't read Plato and Socrates just to hear about self-beauty or self-justice experienced as the highest experience or bliss. No. We want to go to the party ourselves. That's nous. To confirm in a kind of, we don't have a word for this. We could say knowledge with a capital K. Confirming in knowledge or direct experience what we have been learning in understanding with a capital U. So the Greek word for understanding that can apply not to the physical world, but to the realm of being is dianoia. So what we are learning is it's through understanding that we can make this movement from belief to understanding, to belief to true learning. We're learning about what's real. Spiritual development. These experiences in ousia or nous are higher dimensions of reality. So they are of the spirit. So it's the spiritual method. It's also evolution, because we can see our problems are caused by false beliefs that we are loyal to. I'm a Catholic, I'm a Nazi, I'm a MAGA. That's not the same as saying, I have a hypothesis that this MAGA belief seems to be the most accurate according to reason and evidence. They never talk that way. They will probably get very confused if you translated their words into that. They say, I am. So we are loyal to it because we're identified with it. And because it's the very thing that we can only do here through time, and it's the thing that both solves problems and helps us reach our excellence, we can say it's the meaning of life. So, zombie because it has us. It keeps us with a very shallow language. Brains. A shallow ousia. What if I told you I was nothing? I would say two things. Is it in the book? Is it in the books of Socrates we're reading? Because if it isn't, then it's an interpretation. Like, for example, if you are just learning to be a mechanic and you said, what if I told you the gasket goes above the carburetor? I would say the same thing. I don't care what you think. I want to know what's true. I want to read something where I can understand based on somebody who has knowledge. That's why we read Socrates. If we add to the book or leave out things that are in there, that's called personal interpretation. That's our distortion of the world. I think the carburetor goes into the gasket because of Jesus. No, nowhere in the mechanic textbook does it say Jesus. You're adding stuff. People do that. That's why they are blocked from, one of the reasons that makes them blocked from understanding. So I would say, is that in the book? If you say no, then I'll say, well, that's just a belief. The next thing I would say is, does that belief you carry block you from reaching the true knowledge of self? And if you say no, I say then go out and reach your most meaningful goals. Because you can't go through the process of uncovering your unsuspected false beliefs that block you from your development to reach your highest goals. You can't go through that process if you don't think you have a problem. It's like talking to a bigot. You can't change their mind. They already think they know shit. So to be in this game of spiritual evolution, learning, spiritual development, evolution, learning, or doing your job here, your purpose, you have to go out and seek your most significant goals for you and seek them with excellence. To do that, you have to have a goal. Well, that's not a star. Something like that. You have to have that goal. It can't be mummy and daddy's goal. It can't be the goal of your church or something like that, or your community. It has to be yours, be meaningful to you. Then you set some steps. If it's not steps, then it's just a fantasy, just a dream. As you follow those steps, you will hit blocks on every step along the way. That's why we're here. If we could just reach that, then we wouldn't still be fighting Nazis. We still wouldn't have capitalism. We wouldn't still have capitalism. In other words, we're not just computers. Everyone gets false belief from childhood called a pathologos that causes the blocks to your goals. And you will only surface them if you seek your goals. So a metaphor we like to think about is Sherlock Holmes. If Sherlock Holmes isn't seeking the truth about the crime, he will not notice the clues. You have to surface the clues by seeking the truth. If you're seeking to justify your ignorance like modern debate perverts on YouTube, I think that all women should stay in the kitchen, and I'm not going to change my mind. I think conversation, human life, human energy, human interaction is about just justifying the ignorance I got from daddy and mummy. You're an idiot. You're a caveman. Baby brain, if you think like those people. Caveman because that's a caveman stage of evolution, to blindly follow your cave leader and think anything different or anything other outside the cave is bad and wrong. Had a survival benefit before we had language and self-reflection. But it's we have to make that jump. That's where we are in history. And we're also zombies because it keeps us stuck on a script. Brains, and acting against our interests and stuff. So I would say, hey, this idea that you have, go out and carry it with you as you seek your most meaningful goals with excellence. You will face a block at some stage. You could be giving up on your goal, not reaching it with excellence, maybe reaching a step but then dismissing it, forgetting that you reached it. There are lots of ways that you can get blocked, but you'll hit a block. If you don't, great, take the next step. Keep going until you hit a block. When you hit a block, try and solve it. Try everything you can. Because you can only get into this process of philosophical midwifery when your cup is empty. When you realize, everything I've tried to reach my goals, I haven't been able to do. I do not carry in my beliefs what I need to solve my goals. So now I am open and curious about learning something new. If you think you know it all, your cup is full, and you can't pour new information in. Reminds me of Zarathustra's parable. Become a camel loaded with the world's demands, slay the dragon, thou shalt become the child who decides what they want. Right. So this is important too. We often talk about, in fact, the first chapter of this book we're reading, the midwifery book, the author meets Joseph Campbell, the guy who outlines the hero's journey. Crossing the threshold, the divine call to action, slaying the dragon, returning home. He meets the guy who realizes, oh shit, all of these mythologies have a kind of structure. He recognizes the manyness. And our author says, hey, by the way, do you want to know the actual paradigm that all of these manynesses are imitations of? That's Platonic philosophy. That's the symposium. That's what we're doing here. That's midwifery. So what we are learning is actually, yes, the true hero's journey that all video games, all media, all other mythology are versions or imitations of. So, in other words, you're a wizard. You're a wizard, Harry. Right, and then the other part of what you said, realizing that you have to go back to where you left off when you were a child. Because when we got these false beliefs that we have been reading about, was when we were seeking our most meaningful goals and doing well. We were understanding. We were open and curious. We were on the quest. And then our parental figures came in and said, no fucking way, not in my house, bud. Caveman, passing on of the zombie virus. That's the origin scene we need to go back to and pick up where we left off. Slay that dragon and begin our journey. Or rather, seeking that is the beginning. So, philosophical midwifery is the art of discovering and removing our false beliefs. True philosophy, which is not what we get told at school, it's not about opinions or debate. It's dialectic and understanding. So that's where we get from Socratic philosophy, is the understanding. By the way, it's difficult to do those things. So we do dream analysis because you're the same system of understanding you apply to your dreams to get guidance in both. And then once you're able to do that, or as you go, share it with others. Make myths, make stories, poems, write songs, make video games. Mythologizing the steps of going through this, like you say, the hero's journey. So those are the 4 aspects of the love of understanding. So this movement from belief, from zombie caveman belief, to true understanding, we call phila, which means love, like philosophy. Phila dianoia, the love of understanding, which applied to the true is philosophy. Removing what's false, the most important thing we can do here. Philosophical midwifery. Our guide for both is dream analysis and sharing it with our fellow man is mythology. That's the game. That's what we're doing. And so we have seen that this person, do you worship Dionysus? I don't think worship really plays a role. This is just understanding. You understand something and then you confirm it in your own experience. I don't know where worship comes in. I mean, you can talk about worshipping a deity as a myth, as a metaphor, because if Dionysus represents something, like if to you Dionysus represents the, the new life that comes as a result of going through philosophical midwifery, and worshipping it isn't actually worshipping it, but trusting the process, because you have to trust this to play it. You don't know that this is true. Just like you don't know that 1 + 1 = 2. You can't ever prove that. But you need to trust it to do math. So you could mythologize worship as the kind of trust you need to begin this game, the meaning of life. But yeah, that would be how you do it. But you'd also want to have some clues in there for people who apply themselves to your work so that they could realize this isn't literal, this is a metaphor. In other words, you're giving them a puzzle to solve, which is important because that's understanding. You have to look for the puzzles. Look for Moriarty. Not being force-fed stuff like a baby. So, our subject got a false teaching, a false logos. The ideal is the third hypothesis. Unified it into a kind of unity, again, a distortion of the second. Identified with it, self, that's the first hypothesis. So what are we doing? We're seeing that there's a pattern. First, second, third. What does that mean? If we recognize a pattern, then we can fill in, we can solve the puzzle. Can we find the fourth and can we find the fifth? Because there are four positives, and then the first hypothesis is different. But there are 5 positive hypotheses in the Parmenides. But here's another thing about how to solve puzzles is we've already seen that the 5 hypotheses of Parmenides over here match the dialectic, the structure of understanding. After Parmenides gives his hypothesis about the self, the know thyself, the one self, and Aristotle says, I don't think that's likely. He says, okay, I'm going to give you all other possible ways of thinking about the self that anybody can ever have. Any human can ever have, any culture can ever have. Which is why we call it the greatest book never read. It predates Christianity, but it completely understands and explains Christianity. Where its problems are, how far it can go, what states of mind are connected to it, how do you think about yourself in the world, and so on and so on. Meaning we didn't have to play out the Crusades. the many wars and genocides done in the name of Jesus or done in the name of Christianity. We didn't have to do that if we read the book. Therefore, the greatest book never read. And Trump, right now, he's not a Christian, but he manipulates American Christians to get them to act against their own interests. Give all their money away, remove all their medical services, their social services, their school lunches, set up concentration camps that they will eventually be led into. Nazi shit. So what? Well, if we talk about the one that exists, because the true self is beyond existence according to Parmenides. Okay, let's imagine you think the self is real, but it's the highest thing. Let's talk about it. Self in relation to self. That's the second hypothesis. The enlightenment experience of Taoists. That's why we use this symbol here. How does it function? It functions in the gap of each moment. It's the brilliant light between each moment in time. So we had a chatter say, hey, it's like frames per second. Yes, exactly. Our eyes perceive frames per second. But there are some spiritual traditions, and they think that the highest experience is to see the gap. Like Kashmir Shivism, the gap between each moment. But that's what we access when we do philosophy, when we do midwifery, and when we do dream analysis. Because especially our dreams is a communication from the gap to us about our problems and about our goals. So it functions self to others. Meaning we can understand the hypotheses of Parmenides with the dialectic. Which means if we started to notice a pattern here in our understanding of subject A, not only can we ask a question about the fourth and fifth, because a teaching, that sounds like a distortion of the third. A unity, that belief is a distortion of the second. A false image, identified, teaching unified and identified, that's a false image of the self. We could also say, hang on a second, if the first hypothesis is, well, we don't have a term for it in the dialectic yet, it's the mysterious fifth, but self itself, how does it function, self to others? How does it function that others are others in groups? And as a result of that group, how do they then relate back to the beginning? Or a definition of themselves, a belief about themselves, a teaching or teaching, communication, functioning, demonstration. How does it divide up into human groups? And as a result, how do people then conclude about the subject? So in other words, by recognizing that all of these things are connected within different systems, but according to the same paradigm or model, including the hero's journey. You'll see this in the hero's journey. Fun stuff for you to play with. Then you can jump or double jump. Because we've got two other key ideas here. A loving, supportive group unity based on, again, destructive and ignorance, and blocked from reaching their goals. Maybe we can't recognize it in. So this first thing, third, second, and first. So are these the fourth and fifth? Well, I can't see it there. Can I see these two as maybe division or conclusion? Nope. So I can't jump to that. Can I jump to this one? Is loving, supportive group unity others to others? Or within groups? Yes. Being able to reach your self goals or to go back to others, back to the self as a result of that group dynamic. How do people then relate back to themselves, others back to self? Yes. This is how you solve problems. It helped that we were familiar with the hypothesis. We read the greatest book never read. It's helpful that we are looking for the dialectic in everything we do. And it's helpful that we have a couple of ways of understanding the dialectic. So which of these is which? Group unity, that sounds like this. Oh, but also we know that group unity or others to others is also the fourth hypothesis. So not only can we unify our these themes that have emerged from this case study, but we gain a new insight into the Parmenides. Holy shit, it's a win-win.
It's a win-win.
It's a win-win. It's a win-win.
It's a win-win. It's a win, 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 it's a win.
It's a win-win.
It's a win-win-win-win-win.
Win-win-win-win-win. We're only winning here. All we do is win on this channel. So how do we win? We win by being able to understand this case study. We win by being able to understand the nature of the Pathologos or the caveman zombie virus. And we win by gaining a further insight into the greatest thing we can learn, the hypotheses of Parmenides, or the greatest application of the dialectic. Isn't that neat? It's a win-win-win-win-win.
It's a win-win-win-win-win.
A win, a win, a win.
So what? Okay, so a loving, supportive group unity. That would be the ideal way of functioning as groups or within groups, or the ideal version of the fourth hypothesis, or the ideal version of others to others, or the ideal division stage of the dialectic within human families, human cultures, human societies. Maybe not families, but societies. Only because families have a role in passing on the Pathologos, giving us the conditions to master this art. So we don't want to be loyal to families, but we can create a better group. Even though it's the cause of our problems, it's necessary if we are here to do this. We have to get a image of justice and beauty and care and love from somewhere before we have logos and ousia when we're little babies, just wee little babies. So that's the role families play out, but it's not a good thing. It's necessary for a greater good. But also we want to know, we can say, oh, hang on a second, to be able to reach our highest self goals would be the fifth hypothesis, ideally, or the ideal others back to self. As we master this dialectic and this art of philodianoia, we want to inspire people to themselves turn around and reach their whole highest goals, or the conclusion of our learning, or the effect of our learning. But also, we can recognize the parts of the dialectic is simply the distortions of the ideal. We get a false teaching, Pathologos, that we unify into a belief, the distortion of the third. From self to others, we get a bad teaching, that we unify ourselves into a kind of unity, not the ideal unity of all of the logos, because all of the self-logos comes together into the highest experience of oneness. That's the second hypothesis. But we don't have an experience of oneness when we have a belief. The distortion of the second. And it's a problem because we identify with it. Not the true self, but an image. So an image of the self tied to a belief about unity, passing on as a Pathologos teaching, resulting in a distorted, destructive, and ignorant group identification, resulting in being blocked from our goals, or being stuck as a zombie caveman. Interesting. So, that was a process of synthesis. We have been reading the book to gain a definition of pathologos and midwifery. We've been given a demonstration in subject A. From that, we do division. Look at the key themes and ideas. From those key themes and ideas, can we synthesize them together? Can we unify them together? We have by recognizing that they are the negative side of the hypotheses. Excuse my spelling. Let's put this in a little bit better too. That all of these key ideas and themes that surfaced for the person themselves through our art of asking questions in a certain kind of way. The negative side of the hypotheses of Parmenides. So, we haven't finished our reading yet. We have to take this synthesis and do analysis, or take this other and apply it back to self. Other back to self. A good version of the fifth hypothesis, a good version. So therefore, we take it back to the beginning. We have a new understanding of what was the beginning of the pathologos and midwifery. Therefore, we conclude. And we carry that conclusion as a hypothesis of understanding, because we love understanding so much, as we move forward in our learning, move forward in our reading, move forward in your own midwifery, as a midwife or a subject, to test it. Did this new understanding of midwifery, what is it? That taking that back to the start, we can conclude what color? Philosophical midwifery, or the pathologos, is the distorted dialectic. If we are here to master the philodianoia, which is the art of the dialectic, then what we get from childhood is a distorted version, giving us the stakes, the motivation, the impetus to actually do our fucking work here. Otherwise, we're all going to sit back and watch the Nazis kill everyone. Watch the billionaires starve everyone. Watch the warhawks murder everyone. Collectively and individually, we will just stay stuck in our suffering, our problems, never reach our goal, never leave the family clan, never leave our zombie virus. and we will become a caveman zombie ourselves and bite other people and infect them, which will have a negative impact not only on our life, but where we go next. We haven't done our work. And if we have refused to do our work, even after we've heard about this, then there might have even worse implications in your afterlife and what incarnation you have above it or next, beyond it. As Socrates explains in the Phaedo. Even if you were otherwise good, no, come back as a bee or an ant. And you were actually bad, come back as a donkey or something. We don't want to do that. We want to go up, beyond ignorance. A better use of language and ousia, higher levels of reality. Spiritual evolution. Again, learning, spirituality, evolution, and purpose. Philodonoia. So, to create the impetus or the stakes or the preconditions to go through this, we get a distorted dialectic. So the Pathologos and midwifery is the distorted dialectic, or midwifery is the healing of the distorted dialectic. And the negative side of the hype of palm. You ever go to a pub for a nice meal and you want a chicken palm and you're super excited about it? You would say that you are hype palm, or you are hype for palm. You are so hyped for your Parmesan chicken. And the negative side of hype palm. Hypothesis of chicken Parmesan lunch. Isn't that neat? So what? So we can carry this with us in our own problems, especially since you probably have recognized some significant elements in Subject A that reflect your own childhood, your own life, your own blocks. What do you want to study that you get pissed off about? What's your version of scratching your face, picking at your face? What's your version of arguing with yourself? You can't understand it, or reread it again, or you're not going to get it right. What's your version of fantasizing about the future? I'm going to get caught out. It's going to be terrible. Thumbs up. You will have a version of this. Why? Because this case study so perfectly encapsulates the block to understanding. And what we've seen is this dialectic is understanding. In fact, the Pathologos is just the distorted version of it, the negative side of it. I'm drawing on the wood of the blackboard. There we go. Isn't that neat? In other words, we are all spiritual masters. We're all masters of the dialectic. We just had bad teachers. Our first ones. We are masters, only we have the zombie virus, the caveman zombie virus, which played a role, kept us safe within childhood, kept us evolving within 1 million years ago when we were cavemen. However long ago it was. To carry that with you whenever you are stuck and you're really beating yourself up, you can take a step back, take a deep breath and say, wow, I'm really, really good at being a spiritual master. Look how good I am. Look how loyal I am to this false spiritual teaching. Look how well I am to play out this dialectic without even without any effort or planning or thinking. I'm just automatically playing out the dialectic. It's what's false. It's the negative version of the 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th, and 10th hypothesis of Parmenides. But hey, it's still all there. All I got to do is take the is it MedX? The anti-zombie medicine from Dead Rising. Take some MedX, get rid of my zombie infection, and I have everything I need to be a enlightened spiritual guru. The highest possible way of functioning of intelligent beings, therefore, not just the meaning of our lives, but the meaning of life itself. Destiny of man, they call it. So we can take that understanding with us whenever we are facing our blocks or are beating ourselves up and say, no, I'm actually a master. I just have a bad teacher. I'm just very, very great student to a terrible teacher. I had a zombie caveman teacher when I was little. We all did. And the only issue I have is moving from belief to understanding. That's all. So simple. And I'm already doing the process of the dialectic. I'm just doing it based on the zombie caveman teaching. That's all. Everyone, Trump, Putin, Netanyahu, billionaires, Trump, Musk, all of these, Musk, I said Trump twice. Musk, Bezos, all these terrible, terrible jerks who are functioning in the worst possible way. They're just zombie cavemen. Potential spiritual gurus who are loyal to a zombie caveman teacher, playing out the dialectic of what's false, or the negative side of the Parmenides. So we can carry that with us to help ourselves in our own journey. Whether or not they turn around is up to them. The best we can do is do it ourselves. The best we can do is master the actual logos, which we're doing here, verify it in our own freedom from our pathologos, freedom from our beliefs, freedom from our false images, freedom from our own destructive and ignorant groups and clan identities, freedom from our own blocks to our goals, and so that's the midwifery, and do what we can to do the other side, philosophy. Master the logos, verify it in true unity or oneness, being, reflect on using both of those to reflect on what is our self, which is beyond experience, beyond being, create relationships and groups and wonderful fun stuff where we're all having a loving and supportive, intelligent and caring group unity, supporting people on this journey, modeling a new way of being based on all this, so that we can all reach our highest self goals. In other words, the best we can do is do it ourselves and become a model. And then eventually, all of those people who have been rewarded by society so far in being the worst zombie cavemen will look over the fence and say, oh my goodness, they are the good people. They are really beautiful. They're having a lot more fun than we're having. Maybe I will join that group so I can learn actual understanding and verify it in my own actual experiences, discover the nature of myself, and in doing so reach my higher self goal. The best we can do, I think. Seems to be. That's why we have our Discord and our community, even if there's only a couple of people there at the moment. So we can use it to help understand ourselves, understand our world, but also use this understanding, starting with a definition, looking at a demonstration in subject A, breaking it into division, key themes and ideas, unifying that synthesis, which we did here. And the more that we understand philosophy, the better we can unify it. Coming to a conclusion or analysis, midwifery is the addressing of the distorted dialectic or the negative side of the hype of palm, which will help us as a midwife in guiding people through the questions that we are asking them. Because what we are doing is surfacing the negative dialectic. Asking them questions, not telling them, but asking them questions to realize, oh, hang on a second, what's the teaching? What's the belief you have because of that teaching? Is it a belief about yourself? What do you think about yourself? By the way, what would happen if you left that? If you challenged it, would you be leaving the group? And leaving what you think is love? Leaving what you think is support, but actually is destructive based on ignorance? By the way, if you don't do it, are you blocked from your self-goals? And if you do challenge it by midwifery, would you be able to reach your self-goals that you were never able to before? That looks like ghouls. So in other words, we are gaining a model or a map to help us as midwives too. Isn't that neat? I think it's neat. My stuffy thinks it's neat. I kiss her on the head. Like that.
Is this chat full of dumb cunts?
Steady on. This chat is so far full of emptiness.
You've been a bad little girl and you're getting a vigorous spanking right now?
I'm not going to promise to update my soundboard like I do every episode. Just have some nice quotes. Oh.
Imagine people changing their positions and improving for the better. The problem is that you can't reason someone out of a position that they didn't reason themselves into.
So some nice quotes as well as the funny ones. So, is that neat? What do you make of that? What do you come away with? Going through this process today, have you seen a demonstration of something? Can you break down what we did into key themes? Can you then unify what you've got out of this and bring it back to the start to gain a definition of what we're going through here? What would happen if you shared it with your friends and loved ones over coffee? On that note, thank you so much for joining me. I hope you had fun, and I will see you in the next one. I hope you had fun, and I'll see you in the next one.